Good afternoon, everyone. So, extremely sorry for the delay today, but there was some inevitable reasons. So, straight away, we will start from the newspaper analysis. Now, these are the topics which I identified. Modern slavery, based on page number 1. Don't force the vote, open editorial section. Draft national credit policy, IOR plus defense conference, US policy against China, oral rehydration, Lothal. These were the topics which can be identified in the newspaper today. So, starting with the very first page. Now, this news is based on World Cup kicks off in a month. Spare a thought for these men. Now, since 2010, when the World Cup was awarded to Qatar, so there has been the issue of, slavery, that too modern slavery. And in fact, this is the issue which is any diaspora, particularly Indian diaspora or the South Asian peoples are facing in the Middle East countries, in the GCC's countries, largely Gulf countries. So, on that pretext, we will discuss that, what is modern slavery. So, you see that modern slavery, the term modern slavery is not defined under any law. It is a general term used to describe the situation of exploitative nature in which the person cannot refuse or leave due to the threats, violence, deceptions and abuse of power. So, this is the largely part about the modern slavery. Now, you see that there are various methods of exploitative nature which is prevalent in the Middle East country. One such method, even for the skilled laborers, is seizing up the passport. Generally, they seize their passports of any of the expired population. In fact, any domestic workers, the passport is kept with the owner itself. So, modern slavery includes exploitative acts such as forced labor and debt bondage, forced marriages and human trafficking. So, according to some data, in absolute number, India is at the top, Japan is at the bottom percentage wise. But in percentage wise, North Korea is at the top, naturally it would be North Korea. So, these are the top, and it is said that nearly around 18 million population of forced labor can be found in India. So, this was about the forced slavery problems in India, modern slavery problems in India, but largely our focus will be on that what is happening in that Middle East. So, there is this kafala system which is being followed in Middle East, kafala system. It revolves around three bodies: a migrant labor, an employer who is the responsible and called kafil, and a contractual period. So, this is what was happening, that recruiters from India lured the people of many Indian states to Qatar for working in the harsh conditions based on some wages, but the same amount of wages were not given to them. There was no provision of the social security and no fixation of the number of working hours. Social security provision was also not there. So, after a hue and cry in which 53 people died in Qatar at once, so there was this ILO forced them to change or moderate the kafala system, in which this part was replaced by an intermediator. This intermediator was replaced in a more institutionalized way. Now, the kafala system functions in the following manner. A migrant worker in the country that practices the sponsor system is legally bound to his employer, and until and unless the work is not done, he will not be sent back to his country. Without kafil permission, the migrant worker cannot enter or leave the country, nor transfer his or her employer. Third, to enter a country, a migrant gets tied to one sponsors who coordinate with the immigration authorities about the former's arrival and departure as per the contractual argument. Now, why we are discussing this? Because we see that Indian economy is largely driven by the remittance, not largely driven, but a significant part of the remittance also come from the Middle East countries. So in this case, there is no human dignity and with the case with which they are working in the Qatar. So probably it can be called as modern Taj Mahal or modern pyramids. So people work day in day out there, but even in case of death, there was no dignity to the death and the charges, no extra charges while working in the case. So probably from 2000 to 21, 2018 to 2021, 2018 to 2021, nearly 4,000 workers died. Nearly 4,000 workers died while working in the other countries, particularly ECR countries, where the immigration check is required and domestic help and such other people are covered under this provision. So, but in most of the cases, the insurance or such other issues was the benefits were not given, and hardly 600 cases were identified in which they died while working. So this is the overall condition. So to improve this, bilateral MOUs ensuring a minimum refill was signed by many countries, Middle East countries. In 2017, the ministry also introduced the Pravasi Bharatiya Bima Yojana, a compulsory schemes for all immigration checked required countries workers migrant to ECR countries for work. Further, there is an opening of e-migrant portal. So even after all these issues, is that even in case of Pravasi Bharati Yojana, in last 3 years only 60 crore sum was issued and most of the claims were rejected. So even in this case, even last 4 years, nearly 53 workers have died in the Qatar only in India. So these issues are not working. So further, a more stringent approach is needed and required so that this issue can be created or solved. These issues can be solved. So this was about the modern slavery part in the express analysis today. Now IOR plus conference is there, directly linked challenge opportunities and collaborations in the Indian Ocean. India is ready to supply various type of missile system, light combat aircrafts, helicopter, multi-purpose light transport aircrafts, in nearly everything related to the friendly countries. So basically these are the issues which is which is cooperation and coordination is seen with the friendly country to create the problems of drug trafficking, to solve the problems of drug trafficking, and to attack the approach which China is following, that the free navigation was the main issues with this. With half of the world's container shipment, 1/3 its bulk cargo traffic and 2/3 of oil shipments being carried across it. This is the data when you can use while writing about the IOR. Further, a GeoSum paradigm of strategic competition, we believe in win-win paradigm of the international relation. So this was the thing which was highlighted by the Rajnath Singh in the IOR plus Defense Ministry conference, and the largely part is that the part which we can draw is that we don't believe in the zero sum, and moreover the thing is that the friendly country can be given the weapons. So it will create Indianization of the weapon first, and it will also enhance the overall approach or export of the weapons from India. Now third part, and which is important part because it can be, though this is directly related to the paper 3, but it can be used anywhere. Now, and this is based on the news you will find in the open editorial section, a public healthcare pioneer. So on October 16, Dilip Mahalanobis, who was a pediatrician, died, and his contribution to the overall development of the public health in India, not only in India, South Asia and Africa, is immense. Why? Because he created the ORS. We all know that what ORS is? ORS is oral rehydration solution, and particularly this helped in the case of cholera, as well as diarrhea. So basically diarrhea is a symptom of cholera. So why exactly ORS was invented and used frequently in such cases? So we will understand that dehydration happens when your body loses more fluid than you consume. This can happen for many reasons, including excessive diarrhea or vomiting. Now this is a common symptom of cholera. So basically the molarity decreases in the body, and along with it sodium and potassium decreases. So this is the part about cholera and excessive water loss. So when left untreated, dehydration can be dangerous. This is because body relies on water to perform basic functions. Now, what was the approach before? The approach before was, in such cases, intravenous injections. Intra means that which was sent directly into the blood, was used to cure the public, but it was not helping in the case of cholera. Why? Because there is a condition, I'm not going into the technicalities, but CMP is generally said that because of CMP, the body loses excessive of sodium, but even giving it the intravenous part, it doesn't help in gaining the sodium by intravenous injections. So in this case, oral rehydration therapy is treatment for dehydration. It involves drinking a beverage made of water, sugar, electrolytes, specifically potassium and sodium. The beverage is in oral rehydration solution. The goal of the oral rehydration therapy is to replenish the body fluids. It is typically used to treat moderate dehydration due to diarrhea, vomiting or any other condition. Now how this works particularly? Mild dehydration can be treated with fluid like water and clear broth, but for moderate dehydration, an ORS might be the ideal. In addition to water, ORS contains specific amount of glucose and electrolytes. The electrolytes are potassium and sodium. This components maximizes fluid absorption in the gastrointestinal tract. The gastrointestinal tract relies on sodium glucose transporters, which are carried proteins, which carries protein in the intestinal cells. Transporters help move substance across membranes. Specifically, this is called SGLTs. See, basically what they are trying to say is that when glucose is used in ORS, so what exactly it does is that it enhances the capacity of body to absorb more sodium and more potassium. And as we have already learned that in cholera, the issue is that it cannot be given from outside. So this, when glucose is given along with the sodium and potassium, this goes here, transporters, SGLT cells, which transfers it into the small intestines, and from there the sodium and potassium can be reinfused in the body. So specifically SGLT pairs together sodium and glucose transports in the small intestine. This allows glucose to increase the absorption of the fluid. Additionally, sodium needs glucose in order to be properly absorbed. Therefore, ORS contains both glucose and sodium. Since 1975, the World Health Organization and UNICEF have used ORS to treat the dehydration due to diarrhea. It is commonly used in countries with the limited access to clean waters or other hydrational facts. So the bacteria responsible for cholera. Okay, so that what we have learned today in this case is that how ORS is helping, because of its transportation is easy, packaging is easy, storation is easy, and you don't need any intravenous kind of injections, and because of that the death due to cholera has reduced significantly all across South Asia and Africa, the clean water issue. So this was about the contributions of the Mahal-Universe model and the beauty of the small things. Now the other news, US sanctions against the China. What is the issue? You see, the news is on page number 14. what DC doesn't get. So the headline is US sanctions against China semiconductor industry seeks to further its hegemony. Don't vote for the world. The issue is that China is literally using the significant tools of Nvidia and such other issues so that they can create their semiconductor industries of their own. Further, more important issue is that their quest for Taiwan is guided from that. The fabrication unit is largely located in the East Asian countries, or fab unit as it is called, and from there China is trying to gain control over the chips, which will be really helpful in semiconductors and AI industry. So on October 7, 2022, the Biden administration announced a new export controls policy on artificial intelligence and semiconductors technologies to China. So effectively requiring them to halt shipments of equipment to wholly Chinese owned factories producing advanced logic chips. So if we remember last year, this was also in the news because last year United States banned 30 Chinese entities from doing business in the United States or conducting any kind of transfer or takeaway from the semiconductors industry in the United States, and Huawei was one of them. So preventing foreign firms from selling advanced chips to China or supplying Chinese firms with the tools to make their own advanced chips. They conceded, however, that they had not secured any promise that allied nation would implement similar measures, and the discussion with those nations are ongoing. So, and these three companies were banned this year on October 7, Iflitech, Dow Technologies and Megaway Technologies. Now it has been criticized across the quarters and largely even from the United States. So they are saying that Chinese domestic AI chip design companies could not win customers in China because their chip designs could not compete with Nvidia or AMD in the performance. Further, Chinese firms could not catch up to Nvidia or AMD on performance because they did not have enough customers to benefit from the economies of the scale and network effects. Because of the new export controls, the revenue that formerly flowed to US chip companies will now go to the Chinese chip companies, offering a viable part of the economy of scales and competitive performance. In the short term, this policy will significantly harm Chinese AI data center companies. However, blocking US AI chip designers from selling their world leading chips is actually good for China in the longer run because it will strengthen China's domestic chips design ecosystem. So largely I believe that you have got it. The main concern was that if you right now they are dependent upon the Nvidia, Snapdragon and such, you must be aware with the Snapdragon and such other issues. So largely they are dependent upon these kind of semiconductors from the US. Most of the phone that people in India are using Nvidia or Snapdragon kind of phone. But right now their fabrication unit is small, and so they are not able to produce very small chips with such high rate of accuracy and data storage facilities or the logic sets. So now what will happen, that because these companies cannot use the chips, so they will try to develop their own. In the shorter run, it can be detrimental for the Chinese electronics company, but significantly at some point of time they will achieve the overall control and the specialization needed or required to overall progress their industry. But ultimately it throws a question, and that question is that inequality of technology of tech, and the most important part, that this inequality of tech is guiding the larger inequality in the society now. So this was the theme of the article, that the United States want to create its hegemony over the high-end tech, and when they will start controlling it, then you will be automatically dependent upon the United States for the technological need. So this was largely the context, but Some initiatives have been taken by India. India has approved a 10 billion package to incentivize the manufacturing of semiconductors in the country. The government has announced a list of incentives to attract the leading international manufacturers to set up the manufacturing units in India. PLI schemes for semiconductors and display broadband protections has been allocated at 76,000 crore. Chips to Startup program. This program aims to train 85,000 high quality and qualified engineers in the era of very large scale integration, VLSI and embedded system designs. Design linked incentives. The schemes aims to nurture at least 20 domestic companies involved in semiconductor design and facilitate them to achieve a turnover of more than 1500 crores. So this was the theme of the article. Now there is this another article by S.Y. Qureshi, where though the issue is non-issue, basically election commission of state election commission and election commission has clarified that no, we haven't advertised or issued any kind of orders like this yet, because it also concerns a significant step in the exercise of the right. So that's why in that context it is very important. Now don't force the vote. So largely these are the points of don't force the vote. That Supreme Court in PUCL versus Union of India 2013, popularly known as Nota judgment, has held that the abstention from voting and negative voting are protected as freedom of expression, a fundamental right. Earlier in the April 2009, the court has held that same view while dismissing a plea that sought to make voting mandatory on grounds of government not representing the majority of the low turnouts. Further, however, motivation by election commission rather than compulsion is the answer. The EC must consistently held and practice this by implementing its flagship program called SWEEP, Systematic Voters Education and Electoral Participation. Section 79D of the Representations of the People Act 1951 defines electoral rights to mean the right of a person to vote or to refrain from vote in an election. The same provisions exist in the case of Indian Penal Code too. So this was about we know the issue because we have been following it since last 3 classes, that State Election Commission of Gujarat went for some or has signed some MOUs with the different private entities, even the government entities, to name and shame the voters. So this is the article against that you know, we don't have to move towards compulsory voting, because the right to vote is a right and the privacy must be emphasized upon in this case. So this was further PUC versus Union of India case also said that free and fair election is a basic structure of the constitution and necessarily includes within its ambit the right of an elector to cast his vote without fear of reprisal, duress or coercion. Protection of electoral identity and affording secrecy is therefore integral to free and fair election. An arbitrary distinction between a voter who casts and a voter who doesn't cast his vote is violative of Article 14, and this is the part that we have to remember, that violative of Article 14. So this is the main line in the Supreme Court judgment versus PUCL versus Union of India. Now the other news, Lothal to get heritage complex. Important, it is one of the most first dock site in case of India. Lothal was one of the southernmost sites of the Indus Valley civilization located in the Bhar region in Gujarat. It is believed to be built in 2200 BC. Thriving trade center with the trade beads, gems and ornaments reaching West Asia and Africa. Lothal is the mound of the dead. Lothal had the world's earliest non-dock connecting the city to an ancient course of the Sabarmati river, and it is found in the various research by that you know, there are sediments and fossils which said that maybe sometimes in the past there could have been a sea. So this was about, but right now before changing the course, Sabarmati went there and there was a dock. So Lothal was nominated in 2014 as UNESCO World Heritage Site, and its application is still pending in the tentative list of UNESCO. And further a theme park is created on 3,500 crore, which will naturally improve the tourism, and features such as Lothal mini recreations, architecture and lifestyle throughout the immersive technologies. Beside theme park, memorial theme park, maritime navy park, climate theme park, and adventure and amusement park will be there. And more importantly, it will also have the world's tallest light tower. So this is a heritage complex is being built in the state of Modiji, Gujarat, to showcase our ancient tradition. Now, draft national credit policy. So a new draft national credit framework is next generation multi-dimensional instrument under new education policy to empower student, youth, institution as well as government. So this is discussing national credit framework to enable integration of academic and vocational domains to ensure flexibility and the mobility between two. Further, national credit framework will be a game changer by opening numerous options to further progression of student and intermingling of school and higher education with vocational education, environmental learning, thus mainstreaming, scaling and vocational education. See, basically what they are trying to say is that they will try to create a sort of credit bank where some students who want to get more credit can store such credit in the credit bank which can be used further. So this was very interesting aspect of the NCRF, National Credit Framework. Now, how it will benefit students? Flexibility in the duration of study, course through provision of multiple entries and exit work options, as well as the path for creditization of all learning hours including academic, vocational and experimental learning. It will also give the provision of lifelong learning, anytime, anywhere learning. Help the students in stabilizing multidisciplinarity and holistically education with flexible curricula, removing the hard distinction between educated stream and making study choice respectfully, allowing for more than one award in the same period, removing the distinction between art, science, social science, commerce, giving student credits for every academic skill experience, enhancing the scope of core learning to include fundamental and cognitive aspect both. Is for how it will benefit institution. National Credit Framework will bring about a unification of higher education institution to promote multidisciplinary education, creating a diverse and rich students knowledge based. It will also help in promoting stronger collaboration between institutions, making credit mechanism simpler and uniform, increasing focus on research and innovation, promoting digital learning, blended learning and open distance learning, leverage the institutional infrastructure. Further, NCRF, how it will help assess the government to increase the enrollment of the student, those who have dropped out of the education, making vocational education and training aspirational, higher education and trained workforce for Atmanirbhar Bharat, and industry, nearly everything. Making students more employable by enabling a holistic design, reskilling and upscaling the existing designs. So this is how National Credit Framework will improve the overall condition of the education and the prevailing skill mismatch, skill gap that can be witnessed in the overall industry. So this was about the newspaper. Largely most of the articles have been covered. Yes, you can relate it with the, if you are asked that how development can be witnessed in the case of education, because we have been discussing this, that how UGC has done away with the requirement of PhD while appointing a professor. Further, National Credit Framework, if implemented, it will be there. It will also enhance the overall the skills in the society or the workability of the workers. So this is how you are going to use it. Now, with that, we will finish our session and we will resume tomorrow about the Indian Express. Thanks a lot.
The first step towards achieving your dreams is having the right coach. Get the best education with Lukmaan IAS and make your UPSC dreams come true. Download the app now.